everybody, so it's Yogi. I'm back with another Keto 101 video. Today I'm going to talk about the top 5 foods to avoid on a ketogenic diet and why. So number 1, simple sugars. Simple sugars come in all kinds of forms. They will label them anything from dehydrated cane juice, coconut sugar, beet sugar, molasses, honey. There's a ton of different names for it. You really want to avoid as much simple sugars as possible because those are going to really spike your insulin. Fructose is a big one. Fructose is part of the sucralose chain, and when it's removed from the whole sugar and it is by itself without fiber or anything like it would be if you're eating a piece of fruit, it's got fiber and other things that help block the absorption of fructose. When you have pure fructose, it goes right through your system. You absorb it super fast, and it can really cause a lot of damage to your liver. It is attributed to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It used to be fatty liver disease was only found in hardcore alcoholics mainly, but with the prevalence of fructose in just about everything now, with soft drinks and juices and flavored drinks, and even in baked goods, people are getting a much higher amount of fructose than their body can handle, and it activates the fat storage systems, and it will actually put a lot of fat around the liver and can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Sugar, pure sugar, can do that also. You have to think, in our ancestry, we had very limited sources of pure sugar sources. When we had access to sugar, it was through things like certain fruits and ground vegetables, starchy things, and they were usually limited to a certain time of year. For those of us who evolved north or south of the equator, very few areas, except for along the equatorial line, had year-round access to fruit. And even the fruit that we had access to was not as high in the amount of sugars and fructose as the ones that we get now because of genetic modification, breeding for higher fructose levels, and the fact that the fruit sits around a long time. A lot of it does before it actually reaches to your shelf at the store where you can go and buy it. And when it sits around, the nutrients are lost and the sugar count increases, so you're actually getting a higher amount of sugar than our ancestors would have gotten from fruit. If they would have gotten a more pure form of sugar, like let's say honey, they had to battle the bees for it, and they didn't have all the protective gear, so it was hard to get, and people actually would die trying to get the honey. Honey was a high commodity, and honey is pretty much pure fructose. Other sugar sources too are agave syrup. Agave syrup is pure fructose. It is one of the worst sweeteners you can use. It is going to help contribute to that fatty liver disease. And yes, it is natural, but not all natural things are healthy. So the next one we're going to talk about and break down a little bit is wheat and grains. There is a reason why we stay away from wheat and grains. One, wheat and grains are very starchy. So if you take a whole grain piece of bread and put it in your mouth and chew it on, and you take one of those sugar dipsticks and put it in your mouth that it will change color according to how much sugar is in there, it will turn completely black. Wheat and whole wheat can spike your insulin levels, and the whole point, one of the whole reasons you do the ketogenic levels is to level off your insulin so that you can control your insulin better, so that you control how your fat stores work. Well, wheat and grains like corn and quinoa, they spike your insulin levels. So you really want to limit or eliminate those things. There are other health effects to consider about wheat. The genetically modified wheat of today has a extremely high amount of gluten in it, Most of us are not adapted to taking in that much gluten and also another compound called gliadin, and it works in our stomach kind of like a little mini jack on a car. It will actually work its way through the fibers. Your fibers in your stomach are interwoven, and they allow small particles of food that pass through as you digest, so your cells can pick it up and take it for energy. Well, if you take and especially if you're sensitive to it, and you take in too much gluten, what it can do is it can spread those fibers apart, allowing larger particles of food come through. When the food particles are too large, then your cells don't recognize it as something that they can use, and they will activate their white blood cells, the defense, and they will attack it. Well, the white blood cells, once they learn to attack a thing, they attack identical things throughout the body. So if those fibers stretch too far apart, which is leaky gut, and you get too large food particles, your blood cells go to attack it, and they start attacking other things that are made of the same thing. So they may start attacking other cells in your body, they may start attacking your bones, and you end up with autoimmune issues that are dietary caused. So that's another reason to stay away from wheat. Also, most of the wheat that is sold in the US are genetically modified, and not to raise the nutritional count, but to raise, one, so that they could be small, easily harvested, two, pest resistant, so that they are higher in natural pesticides, and they are also designed to be resistant to things like glyphosates, Roundup. And glyphosates have more and more evidence against them to causing health issues in the human body. So they have an incredible amount of glyphosates. They're a very dirty plant. Even organic ones nowadays, you often find a lot of high glyphosates in the grains themselves. They also have been bred now to actually produce their own glyphosates in the plant, so it actually exists in the plant in their own form of weed killer to kill off the other plants around it. So the next one I'm going to talk about is soy. Now, soy, there are people who do vegetarian keto and they do eat soy. Yes, it is possible to make soy fit within a ketogenic diet. It is a form of protein. It is also a legume. It does have a good amount of starch in it. It can elevate insulin levels. But one of the main reasons that we avoid soy, most of us on a ketogenic diet, is it's because 99% of soy products in the US are, one, genetically modified, and they have an extremely high amount of glyphosates, as we discussed in wheat. But also, soy is one of the most estrogenic natural foods there are out there. It has phytoestrogen mimicking compounds, which have been shown to cause a lot of health issues in both men and women. And they can also stall out fat loss. When you have a higher amount of estrogen in your body wants to store more fat. That's true whether you're man or woman. So if you're eating something that's artificially making your body think that there's more estrogen in there, and exogenous estrogen, then you are going to activate more of your fat storage hormones, and it's going to be hard to lose fat and get down to a lean muscle mass. Testosterone, on the other hand, is key trigger for lean muscle mass and fat loss. Testosterone helps ramp up the metabolism and burn fat in your system. So you really want to try to avoid those phytoestrogens. So soy, dirty plant, and the phytoestrogens can cause a lot of health issues. The other health issues that they can cause are male breast gynecomastia. They are associated with ovarian and uterine cancer in women, of prostate cancer in men, of low prostate function and low testosterone in men. So yeah, soy's a bad one. The other one that we're going to talk about is underground vegetables. Now, this is a generalized rule. There are exceptions to this rule. There are some underground vegetables that aren't as high in starches as some of the others. But generally, if it grows underground, it's going to be very high in starch. Your body does not know the difference between starch and sugars from bread and sugars from sugar cane and honey. It responds the same way, and it'll respond to the simple starches of, let's say, potatoes and sweet potatoes or other ground vegetables in much the same way as it would respond to sugar. So the simple starches that are in these ground vegetables are basically metabolized the same way. They spike your insulin levels, drive fat storage, drive hunger responses. So that is why we recommend to stay away from those underground vegetables as a general rule. So one bonus one that I am going to throw out there is I'm going to talk about fruits. And fruits is a slippery slope. There are a lot of fruits that we can actually eat on a ketogenic diet and mostly be fine. What you want to find is low glycemic fruits. So the okay fruits are things like certain berries, blackberries, blueberries, small amounts of strawberries. Strawberries have actually a very interesting chemical inside of them that makes them taste sweeter than they actually are, so that things will eat them and spread the seeds. Blackberries, raspberries, cranberries, those are all okay. Avocados, all the time, that is a fruit, and it's okay on a ketogenic diet because it is high in fiber, but it's also very high in fats, and it's low in the glycemic index, extremely low. Other fruits that may be okay for you are things like tomatoes, peppers. It just depends. And it depends on your insulin response. So if you're into tracking, what you might want to do is actually test yourself before you eat a meal with these types of foods in there, and then about a half hour, and see if your insulin levels are elevated too high. We do have a video on testing coming out, so we'll provide a link to that below. All right, everybody, have a great day, and make sure you be kind to one another and stay healthy. Have a good one.